first archetype that came through today is gambler. Now, initially, I'm thinking of the song by Kenny Rogers, "You Got to Know When to Hold 'Em," but that's not the song that actually came through. So I've got the gambler and I've got the martyr, all right? And they actually go together. So I'm speaking to a collective. You have either recently overcome, like you've recently like achieved a lesson, a big lesson, a soul lesson or a life lesson in terms of overcoming some type of an addiction, overcoming some type of like depression or trauma, something within you where you were letting basically fear lead you. You know what I'm saying? I feel like recently, for others of you, like you've overcome this quite a bit ago, but some of these old patterns are resurfacing. You know what I'm saying? I feel like in terms of the gambler, what's coming through is that you have gotten to a place, or you're about to get to a place where it's like you are not relying on logic to lead you anymore. You are relying on what's coming through your inner guidance, your intuition. For some of you, this is like clairs are guiding you as well, like clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, right? And I feel like when you get to that place with the gambler, I'm going to talk about the gambler card first. It's like you are taking risks. This is the epitome of taking heart-centered action and taking risks, doing things that you normally wouldn't have done before, like the old version of yourself, right? And you're doing it anyway, regardless of whether people are agreeing with you, whether a society agrees with what you're doing, because you know innately within that it is the right move for you. And you've actually achieved success. You've already achieved success. Like, I know this is the right move for me to take. I'll give you an example. I'm going to use myself as an example here. So I am a registered nurse. Okay. I've been a registered nurse now for a little over 7 years, practicing in mind, body, spirit health, specializing in plant medicines, cannabis, psychedelics, those types of things, right? Mental health. Okay. And so I no longer work in conventional medicine. I haven't since 2021. And I'm actually choosing to retire my nursing license that coming in 2025, because I know my soul's path, my destiny is to do this, is to be a tarot reader. This is a calling that I've denied since I was very, very young, and have recently just stepped into this over the last several years. I've been reading cards for the last 5+ years personally, but to do this professionally, I have a lot of people that are like questioning me, like, why would you let go of your nursing license? Like, oh my God, you can go out. It's so much easier to go out and get a nursing job and make money and da, 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 da. But it's like, yeah, sure. It's easy from your perspective to do that, but it literally makes my soul cry. So this is me. And the same thing happened way back when I decided to specialize in cannabis nursing. And, you know, cannabis was still federally illegal. You know what I mean? It's like medically approved in a lot of different states and all that good stuff. But I had people that like, you're going to be thrown in jail. You're going to lose your nursing license. It's like, again, it's about trusting your inner guidance and going with it, regardless of whether or not you get external validation from it or not, right? I don't need anybody else to tell me what is right for me to do. I'm following my heart. I'm following my soul. I'm following what I innately know, my intuition, right? And so, but what happens is, guys, with the martyr card is like, and I'm going to use myself as an example again, just to kind of like break it down for you. With the martyrdom, you know, it's like old patterns, things that I had to overcome within myself, the inner saboteur, the victim mindset, healing from past traumas that I had experienced in my life, healing from generational patterns, right? Belief structures that have held me back, right? And so we can overcome those things. Depression for me, seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder is one of those things, right? But it's like, you know, we think that once we've overcome something, right, that it's going to go away and that we're never going to like have to deal with it again. And that's just not the truth. That's not the truth. It's like our souls have built-in key codes, right? There are things that we must overcome in this life to allow our souls to ascend, right? And one of those things for me was, I'm just going to be vulnerable, suicidality, trauma, depression, chronic depression, right? And part of this martyrdom is like pity party. Self-pity, like really wallowing in it. And so when you've lived your life battling any kinds of like trauma, generational patterns, you know, addiction, right? Any type of depression, mental health type stuff, it's like you feel like you're like terrified that it's going to come back and rear its ugly head. And so, when you've been in that way, what's trying to come through is when you've been in that way for such a long time, even though it's really painful and uncomfortable, it's what you know. And so it becomes the normal for you. It becomes the baseline for you. But what I'm saying to you guys out there, I'm speaking to a collective. I feel like you have experienced this resurgence of old patterns, and now place that where it applies in your life, whether it's an addiction rearing its ugly head, or it's some type of a belief structure that's coming back, anxiety, depression, whatever, right? It's like, okay, so this is what's coming through. A song came through, and I feel like this is a really great opportunity to bring that forth. I heard while I was meditating and preparing for this, I'm pulling out my notes because that's what I do. The Frayed Ends of Insanity by Metallica. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Great Spirit is a lover of all of the arts, but I feel like one of Great Spirit's most favorite pieces of art is music. Okay. And yeah, Great Spirit loves to rock out with heavy metal. Okay. I'm just going to say, so the Frayed Ends of Insanity, if you look up the lyrics, it's definitely pointing to what I'm talking about in terms of this gambler and this martyrdom. It's like, here's some of the lyrics. First of all, the opening riff of the song is from The Wizard of Oz. Oh, we, oh, oh, oh. What does that remind you? It reminds you of like when you're in the Wicked Witch's castle, right? And that was like the song that her henchmen were like singing, right? So Dorothy always had the power to go back home. Dorothy always had the power to free herself and leave Oz and go back home. It's no different in this type of situation. It's like you have the power. I'm getting chills on this right now. You have the power within yourself, the choice, okay, to shift these energies, because emotions and feelings and thoughts are energies, you guys. And we do have the power to choose how to shift, whether to sit in the self-pity, right? And here's an example of the self-pity with some of the lyrics. So, old habits reappear, fighting the fear of fear, growing conspiracy, everyone's out for me. And then later in the song, it's like, again, old habits reappear, fighting the fear of fear, growing conspiracy, myself is after me. I'm the slave of fear, my captor. It's like the message that was coming through. I'm getting chills on this right now with that song in terms of, you've already had success trusting your intuition and going against the grain, like the nonconformist badass that you are. 12:21 on the clock. I always freaking see that when I'm doing this. I love it so much. But it's totally normal for these archetypes to rear their ugly heads within us because they're built within us, right? So that inner self-saboteur is telling you, oh no, like maybe, okay, this is what's coming through. Sorry, it's coming through really fast. It's like, you have the power to shift the energy. If these old depressive thoughts are coming back, if you're being triggered back to doing things that bring you back into an addictive cycle, right? Or the self-pity cycle, right? It's like, I invite you to sit back for a second and make a list of the choices that you make. Who do you allow around yourself? What environments are you in? What are you feeding your mind? What are you watching on TV? What are you watching on YouTube? What are you watching on Facebook? What songs, what type of music are you listening to? What are you reading? It's like, what things put you back into that state? Those old habits. What choices do you make actually bring you back into those habits? And what choices can you make to shift you out of it? I also invite you to journaling. If you're not into journaling, I invite you to journal, because a lot of times, I know myself personally, when I'm having these, first of all, I journal every single morning. It's a brain dump. It's a brain dump. It's to get out anything that like is weighing heavily on me. Any type of dreams that I had during the night, I journal about it. It's also a way of like working through these types of situations. You know what I mean? So like whatever you're brain dumping, especially if it's like undesirable, I like to end it with some type of a positive affirmation or a gratitude list to, again, raise and shift the energy of the lower level energies, right, up into more of a higher level energy. So I just feel like I'm speaking to a collective genuinely that you've definitely achieved success in clearing out your vessel and learning these soul lessons, or you're about to, right? And you've applied this, or you're about to start applying, really trusting the inner guidance that you're receiving and putting it into motion. You're seeing and experiencing success about it. And then maybe you're around people that aren't necessarily on that same wavelength as you, right? Or you're in environments. It's like, think about it, an addict. Like, let's just talk about an alcoholic, right? If you've ever dealt with anyone who's been an alcoholic, or you've been an alcoholic, you know, if you've overcome that addiction, how freaking strong and powerful you are. You know what I mean? But you also know and have boundaries with yourself in terms of what types of people are you going to be around, what kind of environment. If you're an alcoholic, I doubt that you're going to go into a bar. Maybe you can. And if you can, and you're not tempted to have a drink, good for you. That's freaking awesome. You know what I mean? But most alcoholics that I know, they will not hang out with people who are drinking, or people that they used to binge with, right? It's like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just using it as a reference in terms of like understanding that you have the power, that you have control over yourself. And that's the only thing that you have control over, is yourself, is how you react to things and the decisions and choices that you make. So I just feel like you've achieved the success, and now these old patterns, these old thoughts, these old feelings, these old ways of being are kind of like rearing them up. Maybe some of you are in a testing phase right now, because the universe is going to test you. Great Spirit is going to test you to make sure that you're ready for the next level, right? Also, maybe this is just it coming up, and it doesn't have as much power unless you give it the power. Because when we face those inner archetypes, when we face these inner demons, and again, they're never going to fully go away, but every time that you face it and that you conquer it and you shift it, right, you take the power away from it within you, and you reclaim the power, right? Now I'm hearing the song, I've got the power. So with all that being said, that was long-winded, my loves. Let's find out what's going on. I want to pull a couple more oracle cards before we get into the tarot. Spirit, what do the viewers want to know? What do they want to know in terms of what's going on right now, right here, right now, with relation to falling back into old habits and trusting their inner knowing over anything and everything? What's going on for this collective? Please and thank you, Spirit. Yeah, the lyrics of that song, it's really loud to me. Old habits reappear, old habits reappear. Old habits are always going to reappear, but it's up to you, and you do have the power. It's up to you to choose to shift out of it, or to stay in it and wallow in it. And that would be the shadow side of it. 3, 2, and oops, 1. That one wanted to come out. The truth. The truth just came out. Focusing, shift. Yeah, I feel like you guys have already shifted. You guys have already shifted from this. I've got shift that just came out. So you have experienced a shift, and Spirit's asking you, just focus on what you know to be true. The arrow. And this is like a nod to Sagittarius season, right? This is like focusing on what you know to be true, focusing on, again, going back in and realizing what habits, what behaviors, what choices, what am I feeding my mind, body, spirit? Who am I around? Who am I allowing to be around me? If somebody is constantly triggering you or belittling you or making you feel like you're slipping back into that, it's okay to speak your truth and confront them on it in a polite, loving, kind way, but speak up, have boundaries. You know what I mean? And if these people continue to disrespect those boundaries, you're well within your rights to remove yourself. Again, the power of choice, my love. So that was coming through.